Welcome to the Explainer. So, it is definitely not every day you see the CEO of a massive global tech empire issue a direct, formal apology to a national government. But, well, that is exactly what just happened. Mark Zuckerberg personally apologized to the Indian government, and it completely flips the usual power dynamic between sovereign nations and Silicon Valley. Today, we're going to break down the exact chain of events, the legal mechanics, and, honestly, the staggering economic realities that forced one of the biggest companies on Earth to immediately change its tune.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the unprecedented apology. Second, 3 major moderation failures. Third, the safe harbor threat. Fourth, India's massive market power. And fifth, what happens next?
Part 1, the unprecedented apology. Let's look at how Meta bowed to India.
The immediate catalyst for this totally unprecedented apology was a severe and incredibly brief 3-day ultimatum. India's Parliamentary Committee on Communications and IT, led by Nishikant Dubey, issued a very strict mandate to Meta. The demand was, frankly, uncompromising. It was basically, apologize for your recent high-profile platform failures, or you are going to completely lose your legal cover as a social media platform operating in this country, period. And that brings us to the actual response. Facing down that ultimatum, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg formally sent his apologies. He apologized for the presence of child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, which is obviously a highly illegal and abhorrent offense, along with deepfake content and, quote, errors in operating the platform. Impartially speaking here, this was a massive moment where Meta was forced to publicly acknowledge severe operational lapses. They didn't just offer those vague standard corporate regrets, they explicitly owned up to the very specific critical failures that the government had called them out on.
Section 2, 3 major moderation failures. Let's look at these 3 major offenses in detail.
Let's walk through the timeline of the main inciting incident here, which went down on July 23rd. Prime Minister Narendra Modi posted a video addressing the massive student protests happening at Jantar Mantar. These were protests regarding the recent examination paper leaks, and he was detailing the steps the government was taking, like setting up fast-track courts, to tackle the issue. But then, for 5 solid hours, that video was inexplicably suppressed and taken down from Meta's platforms. This brief but highly controversial removal immediately raised massive red flags for the government. It's what sparked that 3-day ultimatum, ultimately culminating in the apology we're seeing today.
So the crucial point is that the government's grievance wasn't just about that one video. They actually cited 3 main, very severe content moderation failures. First, the disturbing availability of that CSAM content we just mentioned. Second, the totally unchecked spread of malicious deepfakes targeting prominent figures. And they specifically noted past incidents involving massive icons like Sachin Tendulkar and Sudha Murthy. And third, of course, that highly sensitive 5-hour suppression of the Prime Minister's video. Now, Meta initially tried to claim this was merely a technical glitch, but the government just wasn't buying it.
Moving to Section 3, the safe harbor threat. This is all about losing legal immunity.
This whole situation really hinges on a foundational internet law concept called safe harbor, which in India is established under the IT Act of 2000. Basically, this provides conditional legal immunity to digital platforms. Think of it like a legal shield, right? It protects companies like Meta from being directly sued or held liable for the illegal or harmful stuff their users might post. However, and this is the absolute vital catch here, this immunity is provided strictly on the condition that the platform acts only as a neutral, passive intermediary.
Now here is where we find a really critical legal distinction. On one side, you have a neutral intermediary. That's a passive host that basically just stores content and therefore enjoys legal immunity. But on the flip side, you have an active publisher. This is a platform that algorithmically selects, curates, and actively chooses who sees specific content. If a platform operates as an active publisher, well, it completely loses that shield and becomes legally liable for the content it hosts. Your actions literally dictate your protection under the law of the land. And this is exactly where Meta stumbled. During some really high-level discussions with IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav and other officials, Meta executives made a huge critical admission. They acknowledged that a substantial amount of money had actually been paid to boost certain types of illegal and problematic content on their platforms. This admission effectively proved that Meta was actively taking money to curate and promote specific content. By doing that, the government argued Meta absolutely does not qualify under the legal definition of a neutral intermediary, which aggressively voids their safe harbor defense. Without that shield, they are entirely exposed to direct legal action. Which brings us to Section 4, India's massive market power and the incredible economic stakes at play. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why Meta caved. Look at the staggering economic stakes here. Meta currently has nearly 837 million users on WhatsApp, 700 million users on Facebook, and over 500 million users on Instagram in India right now. That is mind-blowing. To put that into perspective, India is, without a doubt, one of the largest and most critical consumer bases in the entire world for Meta. It generates just a massive amount of connectivity and revenue. Alienating this consumer base, or risking a structural ban by failing to comply with local laws, that's an absolute economic doomsday scenario for the company. They just can't afford it. So, to protect this massive asset and smooth things over, Meta didn't just send an email or a standard PR response. Oh no. They dispatched their absolute top policy delegation, including Chief Global Affairs Officer Joel Kaplan, straight to Rail Bhavan for emergency, high-level meetings with the IT ministry. Having your top executives fly in to personally oversee content policy discussions, that really emphasizes just how seriously Meta is taking this threat to their operations in India. Finally, Section 5. What happens next? Let's talk about the lingering consequences. This pivots us to arguably the most pressing question right now. Will Meta face further legal action? Is an unconditional apology from Mark Zuckerberg really enough to fully satisfy the government's demands for platform accountability? Well, based on sources within the IT ministry, the answer is a pretty firm no. The apology is a start, for sure, but it absolutely doesn't close the book on this. In partially reporting the facts here, the IT ministry still has major unanswered queries that they are demanding answers to. They want to know the specifics, like who exactly provided the money to boost this problematic content? What specific organizations are involved in funding it? And is there a larger coordinated ecosystem of anti-national elements actively at work exploiting the platform? Because these highly sensitive questions still remain unanswered, further rounds of really intense meetings between Meta officials and the government are definitely on the horizon. Zooming out for a second, this matters to all of us because this specific clash connects directly to a much broader, overarching global debate, reining in big tech. Across the world, there's just this growing perception that these multinational social media platforms have simply become way too big for standard government controls. Policymakers everywhere are wrestling with this massive puzzle. How do you ensure these unregulated titans are actually held accountable to the people and the laws of the countries they operate in without completely stifling digital innovation? Which leaves us with this final, truly provocative thought to consider. As algorithms increasingly dictate, boost, and essentially curate the reality we see on our screens every single day, where exactly is the line between a neutral, passive platform and an active publisher? It's a hugely complex legal and ethical conflict, and it's one that will absolutely define the future of our digital world. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing the information around you, and I'll catch you in the next one.